Women's college basketball is here and the games are coming in hot.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone. Welcome into Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Kalia Butler. Joined alongside me is Sophia Jones. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Now, Sophia and I are so excited because college season is finally here. It's not exhibition games anymore. It's not the polls. It is real game time, and we are ready to take it on. Monday, November 3rd, will be the start of the season. We're going to have some really exciting games. So we're here to tell you guys about the games that we are most looking forward to coming up on Monday. We're going to get down low to San Diego State at UCLA. The California girls are going against each other, and Sophia's going to know all about this. We have Grand Canyon and South Carolina going at it, but the blockbuster game is going to be a top 16 showdown playing in Paris, France, between number 16 Baylor and number 7 Duke. Boom. I hope we made that exciting. But actually very excited to see this game. Baylor obviously finished second in their conference last year within the Big 12. Duke, when you have Kara Lawson as your head coach, who's literally an Olympic head coach, and we've both had conversations with her. You have obviously had a closer relationship with her than I have. She is a true basketball mind. But something I thought that was interesting is what she said about this group is, not that I doubt the confidence of her in this group, but she did make it clear during media day that they're still finding their identity. She said it's early in the season, but it's been nice to, have a good core of returning players who understand how they want to play on both ends. She thought they had a really good summer, but still kind of trying to mesh, and there's no better time to do that than in gameplay and figuring that out early. But either way, they're ranked 7th right now. They have really good predictions to be strong again this season. Sophia, what are you excited about in this matchup?
I think this will just serve as a really good litmus test for both these teams to gauge where they're at. I think I always like to see when top teams play each other that very first matchup, because sometimes you have a couple where they'll look to, test the waters against a D2 or NAIA. So love that they're just battling out in Paris, which is great. And I've always been super interested in that dynamic because I remember as a player when we had our trip to Hawaii, and I was so thankful because I didn't have study hall, but the other girls that did, it was like, dang, like you guys are in study hall, I'll be at the beach. So I wonder if they had any time to actually go out and about. But for these teams, like I said, it'll be really good to gauge where they're at. For a team like Duke, high expectations. They're coming off of a really strong season. They've been just slowly improving in this Kara Lawson era year by year. So I think this year is the one that you want to, see it culminate and really start seeing results and go far in the tournament, do big things in the ACC. Think it'll be exciting to see Toby Fournier. She had a great rookie season. And you don't want to enter any type of sophomore slump. So start the year off strong for her. But those are some things I'm definitely gonna be on the lookout for this Duke team, because Baylor, that's gonna be a grind.
Yeah, when we're looking at Baylor too, when we're talking about head coaches with Colin in her first 4 years at Baylor, she's had 3 second-round losses and 1 Sweet 16 appearance in the NCAA tournament. Last season, they were the 4th seed, had 6 seniors, but fell at home in their second round to Ole Miss. This season, Baylor again has another 6 seniors, led by guard/forward Dariana Littlepage Buggs, who averaged 13 points and 10 rebounds per game. So they're in a pretty solid spot. They have enough veteran leadership when we're thinking about, those first 6 that are going to be out. But when you're looking at Dariana Littlepage Buggs, she's averaging a double-double. And she's just one of the most dynamic players that they have. She's 6'1", so when you're looking at that guard forward position, she brings a lot of versatility to Baylor. And obviously, this is her 5th year of college basketball. She's been playing basketball at a very high level now for years, so experience is in her name. I'm excited to see. I'm really excited to see her go up against some of Duke's talent that they have as well, especially when Kara Lawson is coming in saying, that they're still kind of trying to find each other. As you said, this is a really good test where Baylor seems like they are pretty put together right now. They seem very confident going into the season, and not that Duke is not, but this could be an opportunity for Baylor to exploit Duke in some ways if they're not feeling necessarily overly prepared for the season in terms of how well they're meshing with each other and just being familiar with each other. So, if it ends up going Baylor's way, this is really good momentum for them. End up going Duke's way. Maybe they got it more together than they may have anticipated at this point in the season, but there's nothing better than seeing, top 16 teams going at it very early on. And as you mentioned, being able to play in France, because that's a lot of fun.
Exactly. And I think for a team like Baylor as well, where, I mean, for head coach, she was one of the coaches I interviewed for that Dallas Wings job.
Mhm.
And so you don't want any, or how do I say, she has that pedigree. Now it's just time to put everything together for this Baylor squad. I think having a transfer like Talia Scott, who I mentioned played in that same travel organization as I did, AAU, just a couple years younger, I think she'll be huge, another scoring threat. But with the Big 12, it's pretty open. You have a lot of talent and a couple of teams that were ranked in this preseason poll, but like I said, for the most part, I think it's still a little open. And with these games going up against a number 7 seed, it's a good way to get some good competition in now early to prepare you for conference 1 and to just again see where you're at and know what you have to work on. But I think Baylor could make some noise. They were a Sweet 16 appearance in the NCAA last season, but they're a program that's used to a lot of success. So you want to see that spark up again.
Yes, exactly. After this, we'll talk about Grand Canyon, who's going to be going up against South Carolina. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the bag drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. I love that it's not just food. You can get whatever, you can get everything from snacks and drinks to headphones, ice, even socks, all delivered. DoorDash has you covered for late night highlights, last minute watch parties, and double OT fuel ups. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off your DoorDash with Dash Pass. Plus, your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only 50% off to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. All right, we're getting a chance to look at South Carolina on Monday as well. I saw some interesting takeaways from their exhibition game against North Carolina. It was a 91-82 win, but it was very clear that defense is still something that needs to be a primary focus for the Gamecocks this season. Don Staley afterwards said defensively, we've got to be better and more connected than we are. When we are, you'll see the fouls cleaned up. The fouls are attributed to bad rotations and bad connection. But again, very early on in the season, and that was just an exhibition game when they're going up against Grand Canyon, who is going to be a good opponent for them as well. You can start to really see some of those kinks. Going up against a North Carolina is kind of tough for an exhibition game, but maybe with Grand Canyon, they'll be able to play at their pace a little bit more and figure out some of those key details. But Sophia, you could probably talk to this a little bit more. They have some great transfers that have just come in. So what are you expecting to see from South Carolina this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can never count South Carolina out of the equation, especially when Don Staley is at the helm and the head coach. Got a couple of blows with Chloe Kitts tearing her ACL, and Ashlyn Watkins will miss the season due to personal reasons. So that's some big front court players that you're losing, which makes me interested in hearing that Coach Staley's reflection after the exhibition game against North Carolina centered around defense and fouls. Because when you're losing key players like that, and I mean, I'll tell you, me growing up against my sister, my older sister, she was always bigger. So what did I do? I fouled because I was shorter. And so when you're missing a little size, that's what you got to clean up. And again, with the bad rotations and bad connections, that's only something that will hopefully improve over time because you are adding some new pieces in a Tanaya Latson, NCAA's leading scorer last season from Florida State. So she's a huge transfer. And when you have someone that is so dynamic like that, it can not ruffle feathers, but it can cause a little bit of ripples and maybe take some time learning to adjust to just having someone being so prolific on the court. But I never count out Don Staley's defense, so that's probably something that they'll watch a lot of film over and reflect. But like you said, it'll be good to get that set in stone against a team like Grand Canyon, who is still one of the more notable mid majors in the country. They won the WAC last season, the Western Athletic Conference. So they did recently lose their head coach who left to Arizona State, but a lot of that she built is still there. There'll be an interesting team, definitely one of those mid majors to keep an eye on. So I don't think it'll be a walk in the park, but South Carolina, they'll want to come out, take care of business, and yeah.
I think the bigs are going to play a significant role for South Carolina too. When you're talking about some of those differences where obviously you have two very key players that are not going to be playing this season. They have a lot of guard depth. I don't believe that they have a lot of depth within their bigs. Joyce Edwards is obviously going to start and is looking better than even from last preseason. But when you're looking at some of the players that are playing under her, Coach Staley said that, they play differently than from their starters, but you need role players to play that way, distinctively different from how our starters are playing. They're going to allow us to go deep and have depth that we had in previous years. So I think the potential of depth is there, but maybe it's not quite as far as she would like it to be. There's still a lot of hope for South Carolina. It's South Carolina at the end of the day, and again, they're gonna figure things out. But I think it's the development of some of their bigs who are going to be playing, with or under Joyce Edwards, and just having confidence in those players that are coming off the bench. As she mentioned, they're playing differently, but she said that she liked that look. But it's more being able to maintain that consistency through, a long season, playing in the SEC, also a very difficult conference to be in. So if you're still learning and figuring some things out. The SEC is a tough place to be while doing that. But I think when you're looking at some of their guard depth, and as you mentioned, bringing in Tanaya Latson, she's not necessarily size wise going to play a significant role. But when you're thinking of a team that likes to play fast, likes to get up and down the court, they're going to be in a good position. And you can't underestimate Grand Canyon. These are, I feel like the beginning of the season and March Madness are when teams like this make their names, where it's just like, hey, we could go up against South Carolina, we can put up a really good fight. I'm going to root that South Carolina will likely beat Grand Canyon, but again, this is a time that a team like this can come in early in the season. They've got all the momentum and they can just sneak up on you. And South Carolina, that's still trying to figure things out. I think Grand Canyon will be a good test for them to figure out what areas that they really need to focus on, especially defensively.
Yeah, and I would throw it back to Joyce Edwards as well, which she had such a solid freshman season, and we don't hopefully she was able to spend this off season continuing to develop, especially with this bigger role. And with South Carolina, they're one of the teams that no one usually averages over maybe 12 points, but you'll have like five players averaging right about that because it's so balanced and they have that depth like we talked about before. And I just think that maybe we'll see some of those numbers go up between a Joyce Edwards and Tanaya Latson because they might need a little bit more offensive production when you do lose a Chloe Kitts. But yeah, like you said, it'll be a good test against Grand Canyon. There, because we mid majors, I went to a mid major, so I got love for mid majors. And one thing about Grand Canyon as well is they have a great basketball fan base. For those who don't know, they have they have really nice arena. I actually played there for one game during the 2020 COVID season because that was our quote unquote home gym at San Jose State when we had to relocate to Arizona. But Grand Canyon is definitely one of those teams that's on that mid-major watch list. And because they've had so much success in their conference these past couple years, you want to go against some of these big dogs because if you can predict that you're going to win the conference again, you don't want to be blindsided in that first round and be one of those early exits. So I'm happy to see that they put them on their schedule for sure.
Yeah, that shows it's a gut test too of like, listen, we know we're going up against the South Carolina. I'm sure they're not preparing of in the way of, oh, we're going up against South Carolina. They're going up against the fact that they were the best team in their conference last season and they expect to be the best again. So if you want to maintain being the best, you got to go up against the best. But after this, we're going to talk about California, and that has Sophia written all over it. We'll be right back after our ad read.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to fanduel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, so our last game to look at for Monday is going to be San Diego State going up against number 3 UCLA. We've talked a lot about UCLA on this podcast so far, but Sophia, I'm going to let you kind of take the lead on this one because you know a lot about both of these teams, especially San Diego State. What can we expect for this game on Monday?
It'll definitely be competitive, but I think on the UCLA side, they're going to want to come out and make a statement right off the bat. They had a quote, I think you could say, under underperforming season last year. They did not end up winning their conference. They were a Final Four exit, and they were ranked number one the majority of the season, which is why I say that kind of is a little bit underperforming, even though rankings don't mean everything all the time. But I can definitely see them wanting to come out, make a statement. They have a pretty much same looking team centered around, of course, Lauren Betts. Gabriela Jaquez is going to be a huge player. Very excited to see Gianna Meekins transfer from Utah. Deadly 3-point shooter that I think will really help space the floor for Lauren Betts to operate more so down in the post. But going up against a San Diego State team, which, like you said, I know a lot about because they play in the Mountain West currently, and that is a conference that I was in. And San Diego State has definitely, we know how prolific their men's program is, and their women's program is definitely trending on that right track. They were the Mountain West champions last season, so they've tasted that success before. And again, similar to Grand Canyon, if you anticipate winning the conference, you want to make sure that you're going up against the best so you're not blindsided when you make it to the NCAA tournament. As well as I would say for the Mountain West, it is one of those teams that has a good disparity, good parity of talent where the top teams like a UNLV, San Diego State, Boise State is usually up there as well. They have some really great top end talent. So you want to make sure that you're battle tested against a team like UCLA to anticipate going up against those other opponents.
Yeah, and obviously in general, when we're talking about UCLA, which again we've mentioned plenty of times throughout our past episodes, just because they're looking real close to winning the national championship this season potentially, and we've talked about with all the experience that they have on this team, all the returners that they have, a lot of them being seniors, a lot of them that's going to be their last season playing in general. It's like a now or never for UCLA. And curious to see, as we mentioned before, obviously they're going up against a San Diego State team who is very strong, but how they're going to utilize Lauren Betts, because we have mentioned before that for them to really make strides within the NCAA tournament at the end of the year or going into March, that they're going to have to find another option. And you can't just rely on her as heavily as they have in the paint. That has been their main offensive option, if not one of their only offensive options at times. And listen, I understand you got a 6'7" girl in the middle, your sister's on the team. You got some big size from the Betts family there. But very curious to see how they utilize that dynamic and how they utilize Lauren this season, who I'm sure has a chip on her shoulder, going into her senior year. I don't want to say underperforming by any means last season with the team, but obviously the goal is to win a national title. So I think they're going to come back with some vengeance this year. And it all starts from, the first game, the first tip off. What are you guys going to do that you need to continue building on? But I think that'll be exciting to see what this UCLA offense looks like. Maybe there's I'm sure a lot of similarities, but we'll see some differences as well.
Definitely. And like you said, I think the theme for this UCLA team this season is just now or never. With the amount of seven seniors they have seven seniors on the team. They're all desperate to win. I think even when you can look at a Lauren Betts, who is predicted to go number one in the WNBA draft this next season, you also have to think about those decisions where you want to make sure your stock is as high as possible to maintain that number one status. Even though I don't know how some players do that, where I know on the NBA side they're like, no, I don't want to go to that team, but that you definitely want to make sure you can get as high up as possible. So I think that's something that Lauren Betts will continue to be cognizant of, and she really has a chance with this UCLA team to gain individual national notoriety. She's been placed on a lot of AP All American watch lists. She's been placed on the Naismith watch list. So it could be a big individual accolade season for her, but it's going to depend on this whole UCLA team. Again, they did lose London Jones, who transferred to USC, so you lost your point guard, so that always changes up the dynamics a little bit, especially between a guard and a big. But we'll definitely see how UCLA just responds this season. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing this game with a team like San Diego State as well. They built a really great culture. They're always going to play hard. They have some great talent. One of my teammates just transferred there this season, so Sophia, she'll be a one to watch, of course.
Good
They
shot.
have, of course, I have to shout out my girl. But they also have really talented sophomore Naomi Pangaban, who just is coming off of earning all rookie honors. So she'll be a very dynamic guard to keep lookout. I'm excited to see her play. And just this, honestly, the whole dynamic again with a team like San Diego State, where their program has seen so much success. You want the women to do that same thing. And up until last season, they were on the precipice of that so many times, where they were one of the top teams in the conference, but were never able to capture that and clinch it. Last season was it, and it can almost feel like a moment of breaking the ice, breaking through that ceiling, where now the sky is the limit. And so when you are playing a team like UCLA, you want to test those limits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we're looking at from down the line of all the teams and games that we have mentioned, a lot of this is a test for one team or the other. Really excited to watch that Paris game. I think that's a fantastic way to start off women's basketball season. We've seen the NBA go overseas and play. Obviously, we've seen other teams go and do it, but to kick off the season and obviously just make a statement that women's basketball is also international is going to be really exciting. And finally, we get to see a real look at all of these teams. So, we could talk about the preseason polls all we want until we are blue in the face. But now we have some real evidence behind stuff. Be like, okay, this is what we saw from this game. This is what we can expect from this team, and so on and so forth. But we're excited to get going on college basketball. We will be back on Monday to go over some of the games that we saw and continue previewing some future games that are coming up throughout the week. But again, thank you so much for joining us on Locked On Women's Basketball. Make sure to follow Sophia and I on our socials, and we will see you guys again on Monday.